In today's video, we are exploring the topic of cells, which are the basic structural and functional units of all living organisms. We will cover what cells are and which internal parts or subcellular structures they contain. More specifically, we will look at both the similarities and the differences between animal and plant cells, which are both examples of complex cells known as eukaryotic cells, and then move on to bacterial cells, which are simpler in structure and classified as prokaryotic cells. By the end of this video, you should be able to confidently label the different parts of a cell and clearly describe what each of those parts does. To begin with, let us understand what cells actually are. You can think of cells as the smallest building blocks of life. This means they are the tiniest units of living matter that are capable of carrying out life processes on their own and reproducing independently. For example, if we look at an animal or a plant, the cells in their body can divide to form 2 cells, then 4 cells, and the process continues. In certain simpler organisms like bacteria, a single cell is enough to function as an entire living being. Therefore, when these cells divide, they are not just multiplying but also reproducing because each new cell is a new individual organism. On the other hand, animals and plants are known as multicellular organisms, which means their bodies are made up of many different types of cells. When these cells divide, it is typically for the purpose of growth or to replace old or damaged cells rather than to create a new organism entirely. To visualize this, imagine looking at a human being under a microscope. You would observe that the human body is made up of countless cells, with the skin consisting of skin cells, the blood made up of blood cells, and so on. In total, a fully grown adult human is believed to have more than 40 trillion cells of many different kinds, all working together. Now, let us examine the internal structure of cells. We will begin by comparing animal and plant cells side by side to see what they have in common and how they differ. After that, we will move on to explore bacterial cells. To truly understand how a cell functions, we need to look closely at its various internal components, known as subcellular structures or organelles. First, both animal and plant cells are surrounded by a cell membrane. This is a thin barrier that controls what enters and exits the cell. It selectively allows some substances to pass through while blocking others. Both types of cells also have a nucleus, which is like the command center of the cell. It contains the cell's genetic material, known as deoxyribonucleic acid or DNA, and it controls all the activities of the cell by regulating which proteins are produced. Inside both cells, you will also find cytoplasm, a jelly-like fluid that fills the space within the cell. This is where most of the cell's chemical reactions occur, and it helps hold the other cell parts in place. The consistency of cytoplasm is similar to jelly, thicker than water, but it fills the cell like water in a water balloon. Additionally, both animal and plant cells contain many mitochondria. These are the structures responsible for providing energy to the cell. They do this by breaking down sugars such as glucose in a process called aerobic respiration, which releases the energy needed for the cell to carry out its functions. Another essential structure found in both types of cells is the ribosome. Ribosomes are small, round structures where proteins are made, a process known as protein synthesis. These proteins are vital for the cell's structure and activity. All of the structures we have just discussed are present in both animal and plant cells. However, plant cells also have a few additional features that animal cells do not. One of the key differences is that plant cells have a rigid outer cell wall made of a tough material called cellulose. This wall provides extra support and helps the cell maintain its shape, especially when water enters the cell, preventing it from bursting. Plant cells also contain a large structure known as the permanent vacuole. This is a fluid-filled sac that holds a substance called cell sap, which is a mixture of water, salts, and sugars. The cell can draw from this mixture when it needs nutrients or water. Furthermore, plant cells have chloroplasts, which are the organelles where photosynthesis occurs. Photosynthesis is the process that allows plants to use light energy from the sun to make sugars such as glucose. These chloroplasts contain a green pigment called chlorophyll, which captures sunlight and is responsible for the green color of leaves. Finally, we come to bacterial cells. Unlike animal and plant cells, bacteria are prokaryotic, meaning they do not have a nucleus and are usually made up of just one single cell, making them unicellular organisms. Bacteria do contain a cell membrane, a cell wall, cytoplasm, and ribosomes. However, they do not have mitochondria or chloroplasts, and their genetic material is not enclosed in a nucleus. Instead, their DNA exists as a single circular strand that floats freely in the cytoplasm. This loop of genetic material is often called a circular chromosome or a nucleoid, and it contains all the instructions the bacterium needs to survive and reproduce. Some bacteria also have small additional loops of DNA called plasmids, which may carry useful genes like those that provide resistance to antibiotics. These genes are not always needed for everyday survival, but can be beneficial in certain conditions. In addition, some bacteria have thread-like structures called flagella, which rotate and help the bacteria move through their environment. These structures act like tiny motors that propel the bacteria forward. And that brings us to the end of this video. Hopefully, it has helped you gain a clear understanding of the different types of cells, their structures, and how they function. If you would like to test your knowledge with practice questions on this topic or explore other subjects in science and mathematics, please visit our revision website by clicking the link at the top right corner of your screen. Until then, take care and have a fantastic day.